Good evening, everybody. Um, everybody having a good night so far?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. So we've been talking about a lot of different stuff, and a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about has been on the buying side, right? But I wanted to talk to you guys about on the listing side. Now, the listing side is, you've heard all the things you have to list to last and all that stuff. Buyers are great because it's the fastest way to a paycheck, right? You go out with a buyer, if you can listen and hear what they need, you get into a house, you get them into the house, you write the contract, and depending on the terms, I mean, 30 days or less later, you have a paycheck coming in, right? When you have a listing though, right, it's a little bit more of a long-term play because now we have to go in. We have to usually, do whatever we need to stage the house, whether we're fully staging it, prepping the house, cleaning it. There may be some upkeep that needs to get done, recommendations to the sellers that they have to do some stuff. And, those sellers don't always move as fast as we want them to, right? And then we put it on the market and we're going to market it, but ultimately we're trying to bring in those buyers. Now, the thing about it though is when you have the listings, you get to control, a lot of your destiny because now you have a tangible item to sell, right? And also too, if you're doing it right with open houses and marketing, you should be generating other buyers off of this, other buyers and potential listings. Does that make sense? So now everybody has their different ways of doing this stuff. My favorite listing appointment to go on, and this is going to sound crazy, and some of you may have heard me say this. My favorite listing appointment is when I show up at a listing at the door, and it's usually a couple. One of them says to me, "I just want you to know I don't like realtors." Or even if it's I don't like realtors, it's something negative, right? Because they're showing me their cards, right? You would not have me here if there was not a need. Can we agree on that? Okay. Now, the difference is how do we approach that? I know some agents that will curl up in a ball and try and explain why realtors are the best people ever. Okay. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. There's a lot of bad realtors out there, and that's why we have such a bad reputation. Okay. This is why we have this lawsuit out there, because people have felt that they've been, misled. Right. And, we are our own worst enemies at the end of the day. So the way I follow up, anytime somebody tells me I don't like realtors, great. Neither do I. All right. But I'm here to educate you on what's going on in today's market. All right. And if when I leave here in an hour, if you feel that you have more information than when I got here, I will have done my job. Does that sound fair? And every time I have done that, and every time I have responded in that way, I have walked out with the listing. Other than one time, and the only one time that I didn't get the listing, it was because after everything was said and done, there was some family things that came up, and they were not able to sell. But the husband, he was the one that told me he didn't like realtors. He still reminds me every now and then when I do talk to him, he says, listen, when it's time, you're my guy. So I'll get the listing. It just may be a little while. Okay, does that make sense? But now I have to be ready to back that up, right? So I want to make sure that when I do this, when I go on these listings, I'm presenting myself in the most professional manner possible. Okay, so obviously it starts with the way we dress. Now, this is not going to be a whole class on, dressing professional or not. You guys know most of the time you'll see me in a shirt and tie, especially when I'm going on appointments. But that's the way I dress, because whether I'm going on the listing appointment or not, right, I want to make sure I'm putting the best foot forward no matter who I run into, right? Because I can't tell you the amount of times when I've gone on a listing appointment for a $250,000 listing, and turns out that they have a friend that has a $750,000 house. Okay. So we want to make sure we're putting that best foot forward coming out the gate. Make sense? All right. Show up on time. All right. For anybody that knows me, knows that I'm always on time. Typically, I'm a little bit early. Right. Try not to be so early that it's annoying. And then I want to be conscious of my time. All right. My time being as far as ending the appointment as well. All right. I know realtors that will go on a listing appointment and they'll stay for 3-4 hours because they feel that they've built a rapport and now they're just having a friendly conversation. All right. There will be time for that later. Right. I have clients that I have moved on from, just selling their houses to becoming very good friends with. And now we will meet for drinks, dinner, whatever it is. And at that time, there's no time limit. If we hang out for 2-3 hours, great. But when you're on that listing appointment, you need to be very conscious of their time as well. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? Right. I think a lot of times we forget about that. What's up, Jennifer?
How long do you typically book for a listing appointment? And do you tell them ahead of time that say you do an hour, say, hey, yep, I'll be there for an hour?
Yep. I'll do an hour and then I will go over when I'm going to, I'll probably run up to about an hour and a half if I'm going to sign paperwork.
Okay.
Okay. But if it's a listing appointment, if I'm not getting the listing signed at that particular moment, or if I've given them homework or whatever it is, I am making sure that I'm sending, that I'm getting out on the hour. And actually I've done it so many times. When I leave now, I'm within, a couple minutes plus or minus of that hour mark without looking at my clock. So it's, as you do it, you will get used to it. If you're not sure, you can set your phone on a buzz, to, buzz in your pocket. Hey, you're coming up on 50 minutes, 55 minutes. So you can start gearing up to get out of there. Okay. One of my favorite things to do is when I have a salesperson here, and you're probably never going to encounter this, but I have an egg timer, right? Everybody knows what an egg timer is. Little white thing that goes on your countertop when you're cooking, and you spin the dial and you can hear it like click as it counts down. And when a salesperson tells me I need an hour of your time, I'll set it to an hour or a half hour, whatever it is. And I'll go. And it throws them off every time. Right. And it's funny. All right. But, the one guy that was here, he was actually for a water heater, but he tells me, he says, well, I'll be here for approximately 45 minutes. If I stay more than 45 minutes, it's because we're getting along and you invited me to stay. How you doing, buddy? Right. So I'll be very honest with him. I'm like, well, I'm not going to invite you to stay. You're a salesperson. So let's get it done in 45 minutes because, folks, my time is valuable. Right? Is anyone here think that their time is not valuable? Time is the one thing that no matter what we do, we cannot make more of. So be the professional, get in, be on time. If you need a little bit extra time, show up a couple minutes early. Right? But try and stick to that hour. If you think it's going to be longer, for example, we've had some houses where maybe they're more involved. Maybe it's a property with 50 acres and I know I'm going to have to go put on boots and walk 50 acres. You know what? I'm going to allot a little bit more time for that. Right? Can we agree on that? But for a standard 3-4 bedroom house, whatever it is, we're going to be staying in an hour. Sound good? Now, when I'm prepping for a listing appointment, right? When I'm prepping for a listing appointment, I'm going to do a couple of things, right? One, I'm going to send them a pre-listing package prior to me getting there. Okay. If I have the ability or the time, I'm going to either mail it to them or drop it off at their house, just leave it on the door and leave it. If I can't, I'm going to send it to them in an email. And that pre-listing package tells them the things that I'm going to be looking for when I get there. HOA docs, a set of keys, right? Any permits, any things like that. And when I get to that appointment, when I see that stack of papers on the table waiting, and I've had stacks that are 10 inches high. I don't know why they thought I needed that much paper, but literally 10 inches high of paperwork. Guys, I'm walking out with the listing, right? If they've already done that, I mean, that's a sign, right? So we prep them up. We're very professional. We send out that pre-listing package, and it warms them up to what we're going to do. I've already told them I'll be there from 3 to 4 on, Wednesday evening or Wednesday afternoon, whatever it is. And that's the other thing too. I judge my people by what is their availability. Will I do a listing appointment at 7 or 8 o'clock at night when they get home from work? Yes, I will. Do I want to do that? No, I don't. I try and set my appointments between 9 and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. All right. Again, if you have somebody making time for you at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, all right, or 11 o'clock on a Thursday, there's a good chance they're more serious. And the person says, when I get home, why don't you stop by? Right. Plus, they're tired at that point. I would much rather get those motivated buyers. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect every time. Does that make sense? Now, in your MLS, you all have certain tools. All right. One of the tools that I'm going to tell you about, and I'm going to tell you why to use it and why not to use it, is RPR. Okay. Is everybody familiar with RPR? Now, RPR is an awesome tool. It has, it pulls from, I forget the amount of sources, but it pulls from a ton of different sources. Okay. And it real quickly, it real quickly will create this nice little neat report. Now, I do this for myself as a snapshot in time from when I'm initially preparing the paperwork. Okay. You will never see me bring this to a client. Now, why? Because if you've ever done an RPR report, I know that an RPR report is a computer generated report. It's going to give me a window. It's going to give me some information on the house. It's going to get me a little bit close to here. All right. So you'll see this is one that I've already listed. We're listed at 410. The value on here was ranged between 404 and 421. Okay. But it's going to give you some information. This is a snapshot in time. Now, why do I do this? I do this because it gives me this snapshot. Now, when I go on this listing appointment, today or tomorrow, whatever day it is, and they're not ready to list, and all of a sudden it turns into a year later until they're actually ready to list, this gives me a snapshot that is saved in my computer, so I know what was going on at that particular moment. All right. Now, when I go into a listing appointment, let's just say I'm going up against another realtor, and I see this on the counter from the last realtor that was there. I know that realtor didn't do a whole lot of prep time. So I'm going to break down my CMA as to why I've done all these different things that they have to going on. Now, I will tell you, this does not work at all if we're dealing with a unique property. This one here is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath in Sebastian. All right, it falls right in line, so it gets me close. All right, but if we're dealing with a concrete bunker in Orlando, right, tunnel home built into the side of a hill on 85 acres in Nanjamoy, okay, these are things that I've actually come in contact with. These are unique homes, right? The one in Nanjamoy, you literally mowed your roof with a lawnmower, right? It was ecologically friendly, 85 acres. This is not going to be a standard CMA. We're not going to be covering this tonight. Okay. So, but if you have something like that, let me know. We'll cover that on a one-on-one basis. Okay. Now, what I do is once I take this, I'm going to get some information. I'm going to verify everything. I should have already had the call with my potential client, gotten some information. What updates have you done? Right. We have a seller sheet, right, that I'm asking a series of questions. All right. What year is the house? I'm asking certain questions because I I may already know the answer, but I want to know how they're going to answer those questions. All right. Yes, I can see this house was built in 2022, right? But if I talk to them and they say, oh, it's a brand new home, I know something's off, right? We know people like to exaggerate. Well, this one's just over 2,000 square feet. I got close to 2,500 square feet. All right. I want to ask these questions. They're going to set the tone for the rest of the questions that I don't know. All right. When was the last time you upgraded the kitchen, the bathrooms, the flooring? What year was the roof, right? So I'm going to ask all of my questions so I can prepare for my listing appointment. Okay. So once I do that, I'm going to take this, I'm going to save this, I'm going to go back to my MLS, and I'm going to start working on my CMA. Okay. Now, with the CMA, there's a few different ways to do it, and there's not necessarily a wrong or right way to do it. There's the way I feel more comfortable, and I think it comes out more professional. I don't like the cloud CMAs, again, because I think they're a little bit, you can pull in the wrong information. With this one, I've already set my parameters in the MLS, right? You can save the documents you want. So once I put the information, it's going to look the same every time. You see, I've taken the time, I've put the actual address of the subject property. All right. I've put the buyer and seller's name in here. All right. And I've already pre-filled out my my signature. Okay. So once I have, the background, this is all pre-filled. My signature is pre-filled. I'm not wasting time on this. All right. You'll see I uploaded an actual picture of the house. Okay. So that they know I'm actually looking at that house, because if I show up at this house and it winds up being, instead of, this is the one I'm doing the property on, and I show up and it's got a 3-car garage and it's a 2-story home, something is way off. Okay. They know I prepared it for them. Okay. Once I go in here, I'm looking for, ultimately, unfortunately, with this one, we don't have a lot of active properties, but in a perfect world, I want 3 properties, 3 actives, or 9 properties, 3 actives, 3 solds, and 3 withdrawals. Well, not withdrawals, but expireds. All right. Why do I want active properties in my CMA? Martha?
See the competition.
Okay. Lauren?
Oh,
Yeah,
just to see.
that's the competition that we are currently going up against. Right? Sold listings. Why do we want sold listings in an MLS or in a CMA?
Well, you know what price points are going around that area.
Yes, but yes, but here's the thing about the solds, and I just want you to keep in mind. Yes, those properties sold at that price, but also those buyers that were willing to pay that price for those homes are no longer on the market. So keep that in mind as well. So when you have those solds, that's 3 or 4 or 5 less buyers for that particular property. Okay, so the actives are the ones that are going to be your competition. Make sense? Now, why is it so important to have expireds in there?
Unsuccessful listings.
Yeah, and absolutely. But what does that tell me?
That it wasn't priced right to begin with.
Yeah, most of 9 out of 10 times it's going to be it was priced too high. Now, we may have some bad pictures, we may have some bad descriptions, we may have some bad information out there, but ultimately it's going to boil down to the fact that we have, a price that's too high, and that's the danger zone. So we want to make sure that when we're pricing this, we're pricing it appropriate, so we're not going into that danger zone. Because does anybody want to have an expired listing? No, it's no fun, right? You finish up the term 6 months, a year, depending on how long you signed it for, and you're not happy, the seller's not happy, you wasted time and money. So we want to get it into that sweet spot. Okay. This is also why by having this, with this house here, I mean, we can see the, low is 377. The high was 417. Okay. If they said, well, I want to list this thing at 445, right? There's no way this thing's going to sell at 445.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So do I even want to waste my time, energy, and money with an overpriced listing? It doesn't make sense. So at that point, we can give them the, best suggestion, but I'm not taking that listing. Right? It's not worth my time. You have to be the professional, and you have to be ready to walk away when the time is right. Make sense? So we have our comps. Now, the other reason why I like this version, doing it like this in the MLS, is I have this side-by-side comparison. So you'll see it'll keep the subject property on the left-hand side. And we actually have a full class that I can send to everybody on how to actually put this all together. But I want you guys to see this stuff. When I'm at the house, all right, I can see, here we have the house right there, side by side, square footage. This one's a little bit smaller, right? 1847, but not much. It's still a 4.2. Okay. It's all within the right area. You'll see that a lot of the stuff is same. Now, you'll see, I mean, I can see in the picture, we have a 2-car garage. But look at this. On the MLS, it has 0. Okay. We are our own worst enemies when we don't take the time to put in the proper information. I have mine listed as an attached 2-car garage, but they don't have theirs listed. Neither does this one. All right. We want to make sure that we're showing the information. Look, I have the information. Mr. Seller, you can see that this property was not listed appropriately, but we still have some things to overcome. Hence why it sold at 379, or actually sold at 377. Make sense? All right. So by doing this, you can show them side by side, same subdivision, close on the year, within 2 years of each other, close on the square footage. They're all concrete block. All right. This allows me to, go through it with them and see the actual similarities. Well, my house is much better than this one because X, Y, and Z. All right. You're going to hear that. Well, that's Mike's house. I know he's a dirty individual. His house is filthy. My house is so much cleaner. Right. And Sherry's laughing because she knows that this stuff happens. Right. I actually went into a house and she told me that she upgraded both. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. She's like, oh, I just finished renovating the bathrooms. I went into the bathrooms and I looked around, and it was built in the mid 90s, if I remember correctly. And it had the original tile, it had the original tub, it had the original toilet. And I said, so I understand that you renovated these recently? She says, well, yeah, look, I painted that wall and I did the trim around the mirror. Guys, that's not a renovation. Right? And this is why we do have to tread cautiously because we don't want to, offend them. But is that a renovation to a bathroom? No, it's not. Right? Now, what I will do in certain cases, if I know that I'm going to somebody, you can usually tell if they're going to be a little more difficult. I will print out all the pictures of those other listings to show the upgrades. All right. We have one over here right here in Sebastian that's going to go live here in a few weeks. And she thinks the house is amazing, but it's a 94, all original. Now, granted, she has taken really good care of it since 94, but it has the original Formica countertops. It has the original, cabinets, original tile. It's all original. It's out of date. Okay. So we need to show those things sometimes. Make sense? It also makes it nice and easy if you have an iPad, then you can, zoom in and stuff. But if you don't have an iPad, don't go out and buy one, just to do this for right now. Once you sell a few houses, then you can. Sound good? You'll see I have more comps in here, right? Now, I like the minimum and maximums because it shows I base this on 4 bedrooms, 2 to 3 bathrooms, and then 379 to 420, 423 was the actual sold prices on these houses, okay? Or list prices rather. List price is 423, and then 377 to 417, which also shows me, what does this show me? If I know the list prices are basically 380 to 423 and the sold prices are 377 to 417, what does that tell me about the list price on the houses? That I should expect an offer slightly below the list price, correct? Right? If I'm in an area and my client thinks that his house or her house is so outstanding, they're going to go into multiple offers and they want to list it at 425, is it really likely to happen? Probably not. All right, again, why we want to know the market that we're in. Make sense? One of the things that will help you out with this too is if you have not done this in your local areas, I highly, highly, highly recommend going in to your MLS and setting yourself up on an automatic email notification for the hot sheets. Okay, the hot sheets will tell you, what's coming out, how many new listings, how many solds, how many under contracts, all the pertinent data, so you can adjust on the fly. Okay. Then, we're going to do some pricing. We have a little more information in here. You'll see my total document is 11 pages. So it's not so overwhelming that I'm giving them a whole, leather bound book, but it's not something that's so sparse it doesn't give any information. Okay. So when we go back over to this one here, I mean, this is 29 pages. It has a bunch of stuff, but I know that this is all computer generated. All right. This was pulled with information that I prepared for you. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Effective overpricing. I like to have some of these charts in here just in case I need them. I don't read the stuff, verbatim to them, but the pricing is super important. So original asking price, right? Nice little graph there. And then I put them on the map as well. I use the mapping feature. This will also help me. I can see, right? This is all in the same general area. Okay. But also look what I have here. If you look at the map, you can see right here is a main road. Right. You want to pay attention to this because I know that this is all the same community here. But when I see indicators like this, there's a lot of times when the communities jump over a main road like that, they change the communities as well. So when you're looking at the maps and you're coming into this and you're doing your research, if you see something along the lines of a main road or a tight cluster of homes that might be an HOA community, or you see something, if you're not 100% sure of a community, look at the characteristics of the community. All right. Those changes will make differences in your evaluations. A long time ago, I did a CMA and I did not pay attention, and I caught one that was on the other side of the road. And when I presented the CMA, the homeowner was like, "Why would you include this? That community is substandard. It is da da da." And she went on and on about how that was, and she was right. Right? I messed up. I pulled in the wrong comp. All right. So we do this stuff. It helps us visually to stay on point. Make sense? So what I will do is at this point, I will print this out. I will also print out the net sheet, which every one of you has a copy of the net sheet on the MLS. I like those because they'll do the side by side. You can do the pricing based on, like, let's say a 410, a 400, and a 390, and adjust for the different pricing and commissions. it's a nice way to show them what they'll walk away from on the table, at the table. Okay. And then, like I said, I've already sent them over the pre-listing package. Okay. I've now done the CMA, which I'm going to either put together in a folder, or if you're able to bind it, right? But if not, put it in a nice folder. And this is stuff that you're going to leave with them, right? These are going to be tangible things that you leave behind in the event that you don't get it signed right on the spot. Now they have something that's branded with your contact information. It's bigger than a card. It's going to stay on their table for a foreseeable amount of time and be embedded in their heads. Make sense? And then, right, so I've done all this. I'm also going to bring my listing presentation. Now, I believe just about everybody here has one, or I think I've sent mine out to most of you guys. Right? This is also printed. I print these out ahead of time because it's going to be the same thing every time. It's going to be, and I don't know why this is coming up blue. It doesn't do that when I print it. But this is, again, I don't read this to them, but it helps me to stay on track. And when I have a seller that is maybe a little bit rambunctious, they want to jump over here, jump over there. I forgot to tell you about, I just put new dolphin knobs on my water spouts. Who cares about you dolphins? Right? Right? You know, but they're brass. Who cares? Nobody cares about your brass. You know, these things are things that happen, folks. Okay. So at that point, when I'm going through this, again, this is something I'm going to leave with them, but it gives me the chance to show that I've actually thought this through. And even if we don't go through this slide by slide, okay, or page by page, they know that I have a process to the way I list their house. Okay. So who is the Nolan group, right? In your case, you may or may not be Nolan group. So you're going to adjust this all accordingly, right? I got my bio in here, right? So they can learn a little bit about me. I'm also going to have Ken in here because Ken's going to be the next person that they talk to, right? So I want to make sure that they have a face to go with the name. I can't tell you the amount of times, if you have a TC, feel free to put them in there. I cannot tell you the amount of times where people have, said, oh, I talked with this guy, Ken, but I've never met him before. Well, I want to make sure that they have that visual. That's your choice if you put this, something like that in here. This one was done for Tracy, so she has her information in here. We got Zia. Then why select the team? You guys can put in your accolades, your awards, right? If you're new into the business and you don't have a lot of awards, use the accolades of EXP or whatever brokerage you're with, right? All right. I know some of you guys are in other brokerages. You guys have production numbers from your brokerage, maybe from the local, national, whatever you want to highlight, but show the strength of what you're doing. Okay. Some testimonials are always nice. And again, I'm not reading this stuff here. I'm going to stop here, make sure that they know, hey, the purpose of our time here, preview your home, discuss your sales needs, customize a powerful marketing plan to determine initial market position for selling your home, answer your questions, and make a mutual decision. All right. And at the time I'm with this, I've already previewed the home. We've already discussed a lot of their needs, right? I'm in the middle of, discussing my marketing plan. So now they see that we're actually following the path that I am setting out. And they realize that this is not my first time doing this. Okay. And whether you've sold a house, you've never sold a house, or whether you've sold 1,000 houses, it doesn't matter. When you go in and you have this down, you're going to come out smelling like the professional. Does that make sense? Okay. So price, time, right? These are, some of the priorities: price, time, convenience, and communication. All right. We know, let's just get communication out there. We know that 85% of the complaints called into the Association of Realtors is because realtors don't follow up and they don't communicate. So can we all agree we're not going to be part of that 85%? Yeah, 100%. We got to follow up with them. All right. So then we have the price. They want the price. Okay. But the time and the convenience is what is going to typically dictate where we go with this. Okay. I have to be in my new job in Atlanta, Georgia by August 1st. Okay. Does that put a timeline on how fast I need to sell this house? Right. My wife and I are getting a divorce. She's going into a rental. I'm moving in with my new girlfriend. Okay. Does that put a timeline on what we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. But on the other side of it, right, I've seen this a lot down here. I'm old. My kids are making me move back to whatever, state I came from to live with them. I want one more season in Florida. I don't want to leave for another 3 months. Right? That's something else to consider. So we have to look at what is most important to that client so we can help them make the right decisions. Make sense? So by doing this, the convenience, right? We also know we all have access to express offers, right? Express offers, we all walk into the client with a cash buyer in our pocket. But by doing that, by getting that offer, by the convenience, because now I don't have to make my house show ready. I don't have to, spend time leaving my house to do showings and all the other silly stuff that goes along with it. For the convenience of not having to deal with that, at that point, there is going to be a reaction to the price, right? Investors are going to pay a lower price. So if you really want to be out of here by Tuesday, I can get you out of here by Tuesday, but you have to understand that we're going to have to price it accordingly. Does that make sense, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Okay. Granted, most people will not give up 30% of their money just for a little bit of convenience, but some will. All right. And this is where it's so important to develop that rapport and have the conversations. Okay. To really find out what's motivating them. I got to get back, the scenario I gave you where, crap, I don't want to go back and live with my kids. I know I'm old, but I want one more season here. Sometimes it goes the opposite way. You know what? I don't care. I've lived down here for 27 years. I miss my grandkids. I missed 12 birthdays already. I got to get back as soon as possible. My grandkid has a birthday coming up. Right? Each person's going to have a different scenario that you have to deal with. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any thoughts, questions?
Chris, when you were talking about just simple question, just to overcome something that like for example on the comp that you said that you pull up something, from a different, across the main road or out of the neighborhood. How do you steer from that negative, if we call it, and say, and get back to the point and continue your presentation?
Awesome question. Okay, so right now I'm sitting in Indian River County, right? We have multiple builders down here. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few of them. We have D.R. Horton, we have GHO Homes, and we have AR Homes, which is Arthur Ruttenberg. Okay, you've heard me talk about the difference between from mild to wild. D.R. Horton only sells spec homes. So they are very basic, entry level, very, moderate, upgrades, if anything. GHO is a semi-custom builder. They build to a higher level. Okay. Semi-custom, typically about 40% higher in value, right? 30 to 40%. Okay. And then we have Arthur Ruttenberg. Arthur Ruttenberg is a complete custom builder. They don't even start until the $1.5 million range. Okay. So here we have three very separate builders that all build within the same relative geographic area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Is there a time when I'm going to go across that road? Yes. Especially when I get like that GHO home, because they're like every other builder. They'll build in this community, then they'll build over here, then they'll build over here. If they only have 15 homes in this community and they don't have any viable comps, I'm not going to go next door to DR Horton or Lennar. They are substandard home compared to GHO. So at that point, I may elect to go over to the other community. It might be 2 or 3 miles away, but because it's a similar, similar style community, still in the same zip code, it has the same amenities, the same quality of build, I can now justify that's why I'm using the property. But I have to be ready for the question, right? So why am I crossing the road? Why am I going to a different community? Because that's similar. The one next door is not. And that will be where you set yourselves apart from the person that runs that RPR, because the RPR is only going to pull from the houses in the same square footage in that area, right? I have one we just did over on the beach. Arthur Ruttenberg, complete custom, 7,000 square feet, $3.7 million. I'm not going to get an auto-generated report to show the intricacies that went into a $3.5 million home. Does that make sense? So we have to look for, similar traits and all that. Yes, Sharon.
And then, Daniel, you would save this data because you're going to get the listing. And then you want to present it to the appraiser. Because the scary thing is, so as a listing agent, you're the contact person for the appraiser. And I always say, oh, where are you coming from? Meaning, please don't say Miami and you're coming to Port St. Lucie. And you say, and then I always say, like, oh, are you familiar with the area? And they go, oh yeah, I've been doing Loxahatchee for 30 years, whatever. And that makes me feel better. But with Chris's point, if you're going to go a little bit outside the box, and you're right, you want to use that as ammo for the appraiser, and 99% of them will accept those comparables. So when it's time for the appraisal, you'll say, hey, can I give you a few comps? And every single one of them is always like, absolutely, give me what you got. And then that's when you would furnish that. So, because it's easier to prove an appraisal before it's completed rather than try to go back if he did a lower value. Yeah, like let's say he had no idea what he was doing, and then you're like, oh, what about these? It's harder to do that. So that would help you with that. So all these things that you're finding out, the motivation of the seller, that all helps you when you go to sell the property itself.
100%. Now I will give you one little tip on that. All right. When we go back over here to the CMA, all right, take the comps, print out the actual comps, not the CMA. When you give them the comps, they take it as, hey, thanks for assisting. When I do, or when I've done this before and I've given them this format as a CMA, then they think they take it as me perceiving them as stupid and doing their job. Same thing, just for whatever reason, they don't like the CMA. So just print out the actual comps and give them the full details.
Yeah, I highlighted, actually. I make a joke. Hey, I know we're getting old. I highlighted in yellow highlighter for you. I highlight the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the square footage, the pool, sold, the date. And I said, just want to make it easy for you. And, they like that.
Yeah, and this is also for your sellers, right? Because we want to make sure that we're getting the most amount of value for their house, right? This is why we do an included feature sheet, right? Or, key features, right? To make sure we're highlighting what's going on, right? Has anybody ever been in a home with impact windows? Yeah. Does impact windows affect the price of the home?
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Can you see impact windows if you're not looking for them? No. If you walk past, you're not going to know. You're not going to know. I mean, maybe if you see the, whatever the difference between a nice, new window as opposed to the old single pane aluminum. But a lot of times you're not going to notice. So, but that makes a huge impact on the price of the house. So make sure that they see everything that's in there. Even if it seems, relatively minor, central vac, the walls had extra insulation. It's a low E, high efficiency home, right? All of these things, especially if you can't see them, you want to highlight them. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all a building process. Yes, Eddie.
You said something earlier about a pre-listing packet. What exactly is that included?
Let me pull that up. I knew somebody was going to ask me about it, and I forgot to bring it up. Hold on. Give me just 1 second. Okay. So pre-listing presentation, all right, that we have is like this. Now for everybody, Eddie, you have this in your Drive account. So this is a little shorter, right? It's only 7 pages, but I send this over. Our mission, empower others to create the dream lives through education, communication, and a little bit of technology, right? It looks nice. I printed out our team, right? A little bit about our team, and then our sellers' homework, right? This is where I figure out if they're, really serious. I send them over to them, title policy, survey, mortgage paperwork, utilities, copy of any permits, association documents, association fee, right? We got to know that. Management company, all the contacts, home updates list, right? Again, you know your home, right? You know your home. I know that I just put in a garage door opener a couple days ago, right? Because it broke, right? Me being a realtor walking in, I might not notice a brand new, garage door opener. It's a garage door opener, right? Water heaters, HVAC systems, right? I just had the house replumbed, right? Because here in Florida, we tend to blow out pipes if they're copper, right? So all of these little things, what are they doing? I want 2 keys for the front door and deadbolt. Room dimensions, right? If they do the room dimensions, not that I'm not going to check it, but it's going to help me, move ahead a little bit faster. Any appliance manuals, and then inventory list of furnished items sold with the property. Okay. So, and Eddie, you have this right in your Drive, so this stuff is all right there for you. All right. Useful types of contractors, and this is where we let them know that, hey, if they need this stuff, give us a yell. All right, how we operate, a little bit about us. So it's a nice presentation before we even get there for the presentation. And if anybody needs copies of this, if you're not in there, let me know. I'm more than happy to share them. Okay, but do you see how by being systematic, it's presenting a more professional opinion than, let me come see what your house looks like, then I'll figure it out. Right? You'll also notice on the actual CMA, you will not see anywhere on here that I put on a recommended price. Right? I do not put that on there for what I'm going to discuss with the client, because their needs are going to dictate that, some of that. Make sense?
So do you have a low, medium, and high in your minds based on what they tell you
Oh,
for
yeah,
what's
absolutely.
the actual?
Yeah, I mean, I've already built this out. I know we're going to be somewhere in this range between 377 and 417 for the sale price. Possibly a little higher on the list price. Unless of course I see something that changes. But I've gone into houses where it was a great house and they gutted the kitchen and the bathrooms, thinking that they were going to renovate it, and now all I have is a blank shell. It's not falling in this price category anymore. Right? I had a girl did that to her house. I mean, it was a beautiful 350, I think it was 350, 375, something like that. and she decided to gut it, and then decided she had no money to put it back together and thought she would get the same money back. Right? That doesn't work. Does that make sense to everybody? So there's not a wrong or right answer to this. There's just the more professional you are, and this is why we put these tools together. We've been doing this for a while. We've honed these things. They work. They give you something tangible to leave with your people, and it's multiple touches. In a matter of 3 or 4 days or a week, it took me to get to this listing presentation. They've already received multiple messages, multiple emails. They've received a tangible pre-listing presentation, as well as when I get there, they're going to have all the research documents. And ultimately, what I'm going for is the one-step approach. My intention is to get that listing signed while I'm there. Okay. Now, if it's a unique property and it's, got the concrete bunker or one of those other things, I may have to go back for another time. Okay. Does that make sense?
Or you guys will call me, I'll show you, or Chris will show you how to, I still get it signed, even though they say, oh, we want to paint this or do this. As long as you have an MLS waiver of entry form in your MLS, or ours allows certain things in additional terms, I still want them to sign it, because if they're willing to sign and I walk away and say, oh, well, just wait till you're done remodeling the bathroom, I lost that listing.
Yeah.
So I'll get, and I know Chris says the same thing, but I'll get it signed and say seller directs broker not to put in the MLS until, August 5th, whatever it is, or there's other ways. And then you can do that, at least get it signed.
Yeah. I just did one. I signed the listing, and it won't go into the system for 30 to 45 days. We're waiting on a roof.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of that. You want to, you push them. You want to see if you can get signed.
If you do that, do you extend it past 6-month listing, or do you still stay with a 6-month listing?
Yeah, 100%. I want that 6 months to market it. Okay. Now, granted, do we plan on keeping it on the market for 6 months? No. But I will adjust accordingly. And folks, we're heading towards a market where you're going to see listings that do get extended. Right? And sometimes you have to have that conversation depending on what it is. I have a piece of oceanfront property right now. It's been listed over a year. It's oceanfront. It's $1.8 million. It's worth it. We will find a buyer, but it's a very unique buyer I'm looking for. So could I get it sold at 500,000? Absolutely. But it's not going to, that doesn't, that's not realistic. Make sense? All right, Jennifer, you got your hand up?
Yeah. So our MLS has a data input sheet that we can print out and walk around the house. When you are having them show you the house, do you have like a sheet like that with you that you're taking notes of every single?
So here's what I do. I have my yellow notepads. Actually, when I go on my listing appointment, I have it in this nice little billfold, and I do it in here.
Okay.
Now, if you want to use the check sheet while you're going, we do have other listing check sheets that are a little bit easier than those ones. The reason why I like my yellow pages, one, it's easier for me to read, but also two, I'm just making notes about their house. I find that if I'm going through with the listing checklist at that point, you can, if you have somebody that's on the fence, they feel like you're rushing them to the line.
Okay.
So I'll just make my notes. And then once I have the listing, I will go back, spend time, get my room measurements, get my, take the dates off of the, and the serial numbers off of the utilities, all that stuff. At that point, then you're going to have a lot more time to really go into this thing and get all of that data.
Okay.
Yeah, Jennifer, it's a great, if you're newer, it's definitely like, if you've never done it, obviously, yes, you should bring it. And as you get used to it, what I would think is that I still forget to take the measurements of the rooms because it's always on the MLS, and I forgot again. Thank God my photographer did a floor plan, because I would have been humiliated if I said, how big's your kitchen? So because
Yeah.
I always copy that. So what I used to do is highlight the things I knew I'd forget. I always forgot, like, is it fully fenced? Was there a disposal? You know, but also, that, like I do, like Chris, write down all the special things. But when I get the pictures taken, because I start to input it, right? I input it in the MLS. We're allowed to save hours as incomplete. Then I get all these questions and I'm like, oh, I forgot, I don't know, which is fine because I still have time. So I go back when I do the photos, and then I fill in those more complicated things that, like I said, is the microwave attached? Is it on the countertop? You might not remember those things.
Okay.
And we have this one. This is an older one I just pulled up for whatever reason, but this one here, you'll see how, whoever did this one, they just went through and made some quick notes on it. So you can do that too if you want to do that micro macro. They missed a bunch of stuff, but you go back, see, you got measurements and all that kind of stuff. So we have these as well.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
So Chris, another thing, when you're there and the house is old, have you ever recommended a pre-inspection? Or if you're fighting about, well, you're not fighting, you're fighting in your head about price, and they've nice people, but completely out of their minds, do you also recommend a pre-appraisal? Depending
on the situation, yeah. Right? Because, the beautiful thing is, and keep this in mind, right? Your job, okay, is to build rapport and make that client feel at ease. Okay. So utilize the tools and services that you have out there. Okay. Now on the team, you guys know that you have, myself and some of the others that will assist you. If you need a second opinion, I can be the bad guy. You can be, the one that's, keep them calm. An appraisal is independent, right? Let them be angry at the appraiser. I can't believe he said my house only $300,000. This is a $600,000 house. No, it's not. Right? Same thing with stagers, right? I have stagers that will go through and give them an assessment of their house. Your bedspread looks like a dog took a mess on there. Okay. I may not want to tell them that they're a dirty, nasty pig. Right?
Yes, you do. I know you. No, I'm just kidding.
I may want to tell them, but it's not in my best interest as creating a relationship to do that. So by having that third party, they can be that person. So yes, in certain circumstances, an appraisal, a home inspection, a pre-inspection, right? If you're having, if you have a house that is in disrepair, right? The woman that I went over to, that has a 93 and 94 house, and it's all original. I know she's maintained it. Plus, the referral came from my handyman, who's her handyman, and I know he's been maintaining that house for the past 30 years. So he can tell me everything. I got a stack of receipts from him, right? I know he maintains everything that's wrong with that house. So for that, do I really need an inspection? Probably not.
But so I went to one, had a great rapport, and it was a lady living all by herself, and I knew the roof was original, the AC, everything original. You were talking 20 years old. So this is what I said to them. I said, listen, and the house was very clean, just like Chris said, probably same type, very well kept. But I said, we already know that the roof is most likely going to have to be replaced because of the age, and we know in our area how insurance companies are. I said, let's get an inspection and make sure there is nothing on that inspection report afterwards, repair of it, except the roof, the AC, and the hot water heater, if those are the only three things. And they were so relieved. They were like, oh, thank you. So Joey came over, he did everything. And honestly, they have to cut. I know it's going to come up. There's rotted wood. It's a frame house on two sides, and there's a tree growing in one of the gutters. Go figure that. So, and the roof has 1 to 3 years life. So I manage their expectation. I'm like, look, we're going to price it like this, and we're most likely going to have to offer a concession to the buyer because they're going to have to get a new roof. They're not going to be able to get insurance if that's what they want. And when you do that, they're relieved. And believe me, when we get an offer, there's going to be nothing on that inspection report except the roof.
Absolutely. Does that make sense to everybody?
Because if you manage now, fast forward, I know we're running out of time, but fast forward, if you're in a deal, everybody's packed, and then all of a sudden they find out that the buyer can't get insurance because the roof's sold. They're going to be very cranky. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
if you tell them ahead of time, I swear, if someone, don't look up my listing, but if someone comes to us and says they want 15,000 in concessions, they're going to say, absolutely, because they already know.
I like it. All right, guys, we're at the 7 o'clock time frame. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions? We're willing to answer them if you guys need them. If not, we can cut out of here.
We just need to get some listings.
Absolutely. Does this help? Does this help at all, folks?
Yeah.
Okay. I promise you, you go in, you be personable, you present this as professional, you will gain more business. All right. There's a rule out there, or a rule or whatever, but basically there's 20% of the business that you're going to get regardless of if you show up in your pajamas, disheveled, whatever, just because people just don't feel like looking for anybody else, right? There's 20% of the business that no matter what you do, you're not going to get it. They're just appeasing somebody. So you're not going to get 100%. But that 60% in between is what we're fighting for. All right. And the more professional and the more prepared you are will be the larger piece of that 60% that you can acquire for your business portfolio.
Because I can guarantee you, go look at some listings. These agents are not doing what Christopher is having us do. They are not. You're setting yourself apart.
Absolutely. So, guys, we have some great stuff going on. Super happy you guys were here. Hope you got a lot out of it. I know it's 7 o'clock and you all want to get back to your families. So I will let you guys go do that. If you need anything, let us know and let's get out there and crush it. Sound good?
Thank
That's
you.
good.
All right, guys. See you in a little bit.
See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. See you there.